It's been about 5 or 6 days, I think now, since we've had that big hailstorm. And so I'm gonna do a walkthrough now of my fields, kind of like I did last time right after the storm, and show you what everything is looking like now that it's had a couple days to really show what it's gonna look like. Sammy's gonna do the walk along with me. She's looking for rocks. She's found a couple pieces of coal. You wanna show them, Sammy?
I found a piece of sea glass.
Sea glass.
What else would that be?
And then she also found this shiny quart. Anyway, back to what the video's about. In the strawberries, they took it pretty hard. A lot of the leaves have holes and rips and tears in them. Even actually broke some of the entire leaves off. But as far as the plant goes, it looks great. I think it's gonna do just fine. It's still gonna be probably 2 or 3 weeks until you don't really see much of the hail at all. But as of now, we're just happy the plants look good. So then over here, beside the strawberries, is our next patch of corn. You can see how the hail really ripped this apart. Kind of just shredded it. But even though the leaves look horrible, the corn itself doesn't seem to be hurt much at all. We've been picking this whole week since the hailstorm, and it's been a little bit of a struggle with how the wind blew the stalks over and stuff like that. But we can't find any real damage on the corn, which is awesome. Even if it did, it would only be on the outer layer of the husk, and the husk has, I don't know, 5, 6, somewhere between that and 10 layers, and so it's hard for that to penetrate through that. If you want to see what got hit the hardest though, you're going to want to wait till the end of this video, because that's going to be quite a major loss. Moving into the pepper field, and I apologize with the wind, I know it's going to be kind of hard to hear me, but when you look at them from a distance, they look awesome. The plants don't even look that bad. They actually looked a lot worse right after the hailstorm, but it's the peppers that really got affected more than the plant. I haven't really picked peppers much this season, but this is what we're looking at for a lot of the field. I've noticed that market throughout this past week, a lot of what the guys have been picking has a lot of like little specks, little nicks, little blemishes in it, which is sellable, but just not perfect like we'd like to see it. And so this is what a lot of the field looks like right here. Now this one was just bad in general. I don't know what that's from, but all these little tiny nicks and spots, all that on the stem, right around there, that's all hail damage. All these holes like the strawberries is hail damage. This one really got it bad. And this is what I was trying to tell you guys in my last video about the hailstorm, was we had to wait and see, because these didn't look near this bad right after the storm. And there's nothing we're gonna do about it at this point now. We're taking some of the ones that aren't hit so bad, but a lot of them we're just gonna have to throw out, because if we don't get them off the plant, not only is it gonna suck nutrients from it, but it's not gonna get any better, and we want that nutrients going to the plant to be pushed now to the new peppers that haven't really been affected yet. This one here that was kind of facing a little bit of the opposite direction isn't quite as bad, but this here, horrible. This one has a couple nicks, but I think that'll be salvageable. The longer these plants go, or the longer these peppers go that have these marks in it, the more they're just gonna rot, because they're not gonna last. Here's the Italianelle, just like the bell. You can see all the marks in it. That's something that could possibly be sold. The pimento. Here is the Cubanelles. These ones got absolutely hammered. Such a shame. We took a major loss on this field. And this field is huge. Here's the poblano peppers. I can see, yeah, you can see some holes there. It's funny because some of the peppers have holes straight through them. Some of them just have nicks on the outside. Other ones that are kind of down under the plant aren't affected too bad. But this one, even being down under, still has marks in it. To be quite honest, right after the hailstorm, when I was doing the walk around, nothing looked that bad. I didn't think it was gonna be, I thought most of the stuff was gonna be okay. But after seeing this now, it's way, way worse than what I thought it was gonna be. Other things though came back around, like this sweet corn. I remember when I was taking the video for this was almost laying flat, but it only took a couple days, and this is basically right back up to where it was. Now again, the leaves are shredded, but I don't think that's gonna affect how it performs later on in the season. Might just set it back a little bit, because now it's got to heal. and regrow. But as far as the stand goes, and as far as how it was laying like at a 45-degree angle, that doesn't seem like a problem no more. Now we added Daisy to the walk around. We'll see who else we can pick up on our way. We weren't sure right after the storm what exactly happened. We knew we had high winds. We knew we obviously had hail, but we didn't know if it was straight line winds. We didn't know if it was a tornado. And it wasn't until like a day or two after everything happened, it was confirmed that it was a tornado. What was like an EF1 or something, Sammy?
Yeah.
EF1, which I guess is on the lower scale of tornadoes, but still.
For our area.
Yeah, for our area, but I've never experienced anything like that before. Here's the other end of the strawberry field. This kind of helps put in perspective how big the field is. These are about 1,400-foot rows.
Hey,
you can only see about half to 3/4 of the field. It goes all the way out to my house down there. So now we're walking up to our last patch of cole crops, which is cauliflower, broccoli, kale, kohlrabi, all that kind of stuff. Well, look at all the road runners, Sammy, running around. When I was out here before, these were shredded, which is what I kind of expect to keep seeing. Yeah, you can just see all the holes and rips and tears. Especially on the bottom leaves. Now all these new inner ones are new, so I don't expect to see much damage on those. It's all the ones underneath. But luckily this was actually so small, I don't think we're gonna see much damage later on. The kohlrabi is like the size of a marble. The leaves are shredded, but I think the actual bulb itself is just fine. Here's cauliflower. Actually, I think this is all cauliflower. And then we move into broccoli here, this first row, and more broccoli down here. And then down below that is our beans. I think this is yellow, green, and flat. I don't know which row is which. They seem to be doing okay. We got these in kind of late. We'll see what happens, but they were actually not really out of the ground at all much when that hail hit. So there's just a little bit on the leaves, on the tips of them. Actually, this one got hit pretty hard, so maybe I'm wrong about that. I think some were up, some weren't, because like that one got hit pretty hard, but this one is new. I think out of all our corn patches, this one looked like it got hit the worst. Now, again, just like the other patch, it really stood back up. There is weeds in it, which we can deal with that. But I was really afraid because these were like laying on top of each other. We were gonna have to like lift each stalk up just to pick it, but it's a lot better than what it was. It's still leaning. You can see some of the ones in there, but we can handle this compared to what it was before. Here's my patch of dill. I did 3 different rows. That again was probably 4 or 5 videos ago. You can see all that little light green there, and it's straight through all the way out. And because I'm not sure if this is gonna make it in time before it gets too cold, I'm gonna fertilize it and hopefully push it along. But I'm really happy with this. So getting down in here, it is a little worse than I thought. But again, not as bad as what I thought it was gonna be. It just derooted a lot of them, or at least half of it. And so that's why it has no strength on the one side. After this corn is our late season patch of pickles, cucumbers, and zucchini. I haven't been out to these since we planted them, which was right before a thunderstorm. Sammy actually had to come out with a shovel because we had such hard rains. It was washing the dirt off the edges of our plastic and then starting to lift it up, which I can even see a small section out there that should probably be redone, and that right there. But these look awesome. Yeah, there's some holes in the leaves, but as far as the plants go, they look really healthy, really green. This right here is from all the rains we've been having. You can see where it washes down every single time, and it's just killing these 1, 2, 3, 4 plants pretty hard. This one, I don't know, for some reason it's making it through. But as you get out through here, these get really nice and green again. Here's the zucchini, or this actually could be Lebanese, I'm not 100% sure. But these were pretty small and they grow so fast that they could have been a little bit too young to be affected by the hail. And now they've grown so much afterwards that you don't notice much of anything, which is good. Great, actually. I'm now heading into our first patch of sweet corn, which means nothing at this point because we've already picked everything off of it. We're actually gonna go through and mow it here pretty quick, but you can see how these stalks are laying over as well. One of the biggest things I was scared of after the storm was our cantaloupe and watermelon, because once they get ruined, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's this size or it's big and ready to go, there ain't no coming back from it. So I was afraid that we were gonna have nothing left, and this is what they look like now. Luckily, this patch, cantaloupe and watermelon, has really good leaf coverage, and so that helped a lot with the hail. I do see some that have a little bit of scabbing on them. That's kind of expected. That's a really nice watermelon. That's a Sugar Baby, red seedless. But for the most part, the hail I don't think was big, or I don't know if it just didn't come down hard enough to penetrate the skin, which is awesome, meaning that all of our watermelons seem to be just fine. They're growing great. Some of the biggest actually we've had in a couple of years, and I think there's gonna be a lot of potential for this field. Yeah, like I said, there is gonna be a little bit of scabbing, but I don't think anybody eats the rind anyway, so who cares? And then up here is the cantaloupe. Now they kind of have a harder shell, I would say, and so I don't see anything on them. I didn't really expect to. Just holes in the leaves. A lot of holes in the leaves. Again, they look awesome. We've started harvesting some, just not a ton. We're expecting this week to really start pulling the bins out of here. Over here is our first cole crop patch, along with the pickle, zucchini, red beets. Now red beets didn't get affected because they're underground. Pickles, we got holes in the leaves just like before. Our kale, which, you know, is only harvested for the leaves, doesn't seem to have much damage, maybe just because like they're so crinkly and it makes them a little bit stronger. And as far as the cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli goes, well, we've harvested basically everything there is to harvest out of that, so that wasn't a big loss either. I'm not gonna get out to our pumpkins to show you them because they're at another field off the farm. But Dad said when he was out spraying them, which was, I don't know, about a week before the storm, he didn't even see any small pumpkins on, which is really good for us because we got them planted late, which isn't good. But now, because they weren't even formed yet, the hail didn't have anything to, you know, destroy or mark up, which is great because pumpkins, unlike watermelon, once they get nicked up and scarred, then people don't really want them. So now I'm heading down through, well, this is our soybeans. Dad just got sprayed. He's killing all the weeds in there. And now this is our hay field, which is cut and baled. And I'm gonna get down into our mid-season patch of cole crops and onions and eggplant. It's beautiful down here. There's about 3 clouds in the whole sky. Looking back at things, everything's just kind of crazy. We started out this season probably drier than we've ever started out a season before, or at least from what I can remember. I mean, we were hauling in truckloads of water, irrigating every single day. It was just horrible. Then all of a sudden, did a whole 180. Now we're getting rain almost every day. And it's not like, you know, an 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, it's 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, or over an inch. Luckily, most of our fields are up on a hill. Everything drains off nice. But I feel bad for some of the other farmers that are low-lying next to creeks and rivers because they're really getting hit hard. Stuff can only take so much water. Like all these cole crops you see here behind me love water. They love the cool, they love lots of water. But if it starts getting to be too much of, I would just say water, not really cold weather, well, cold weather is gonna hold the plants back from growing, but too much water is just gonna kill them. And that's what's kind of happening down here in the lower portion of this field, which is bad, but not real bad considering it's only a very small portion. So I started out this video all the way up on the hill by that tree and actually a little bit past that. And our whole farm just kind of rolls and slopes down. So this is about the lowest point of our farm. We have 2 more fields. We have the hay field and that cornfield down there. And so right down here is where all the water wants to drain. And you can see that because the road is dry, dry, dry until right here, which is where I was with our side-by-side this morning. I had my back tires here and my front tires sunk in about 6 to 8 inches. And I was like, well, I'm gonna get stuck if I go any farther. So I backed up and went out a different way. But the water is just coming out of springs, I think, and it's just coming out of all the fields. Everything combined is starting to kill now these lower plants, which, like I said, is probably, I don't know, 50 plants, not even in each row. It's really bad, horrible. We don't want to see it, but I kind of expected this to happen. It's happened other years when we had a lot of water. That broccoli is beautiful. I don't know if we can still harvest that or not yet, but up here, just the top corner, I'm noticing a little bit of the leaves starting to fold down. They might start to rot and die, I don't know. But as long as it just stays in the slower portion, we can afford that. If it starts to go through the whole field, well, then we've got a big issue. That's not what we want to see. That one seems to be okay, but those three right there are going down. This cauliflower here, done. We have some Brussels sprouts here. We lost probably 5 or 6. Hopefully we don't lose any more. We'll see what happens. Here's the purple kohlrabi. That's kind of going down, but that also could just be from the heat of the day. We'll see what happens. But just look at this. I mean, I can barely step here without sinking in the ground a couple inches, and the water is running out like we just had a huge rainstorm. And we haven't had rain in the past 2 or 3 days. Now, that last storm we had though was another inch, so obviously that's not a good thing, but just goes to show you how much water is still running after so many days without rain. Over here is rutabagas, which we're going for the first time this year, and turnips. Dad planted it. I'm not sure which half of the field is which, but all these little green sprouts is what that is. There is a couple weeds here and there coming up, but for the most part, they look really good. Right here's another portion of the field, which luckily this drains out really nice, so the water isn't laying and killing the plants, but you can see where the water comes down through when we get a hard storm. That's about 8-10 inches deep. As far as our onions, like I said, red beets and potatoes go, well, they're underneath the ground and they're just about done growing. So any kind of hail or wind damage that happened to the tops of all that stuff wasn't really a big deal. And since most of the plant, or if not all of it, is underneath, that stuff really wasn't affected. But the onions are done growing now, so we're gonna start going through the whole entire field and pulling out all 20,000. And so you can see here, these little white mark, kind of like the peppers, is from the hail. But for the most part, I don't see any damage in the actual onion, even though they are sticking out. Then down below that is our eggplant. Our eggplant, we're doing beautiful this season. It's a real shame now that we had this hailstorm. They took it hard. Luckily, these are pretty leafy, and always the biggest eggplants sit underneath. But I don't know, and I haven't seen any damage from the ones they've been picking throughout the week. I see a little mark there. But the tops now are really starting to get hurt and affected and dying. You can see all the holes. Hopefully we can keep them going. The eggplant on them are gorgeous from what I can see. Like this one, yeah, it did get affected a little bit. You can see 2 or 3 marks there because that's kind of out in the open. But for the most part, these were protected, but that hail and wind took a lot of the coverage away now, so we'll see what happens. The last thing I want to show you for today is our tomatoes. Now, tomatoes are a huge deal because we saw a ton of them. People like to use them for canners and all sorts of stuff. So we sometimes pick 30, 40, 50 baskets a day, and we'll sell them within a day or two at our markets. And with now all these being damaged and a lot of them just gonna have to be thrown out for rotten, not even being able to use for canners, that's gonna be a big loss. This is our later patch of tomatoes and everything that was exposed. And now this is a goofy tomato to begin with, but you can see how the hail almost went completely through that. These here have the marks on them like the peppers do, but that's still a long way from being ripe, and the longer this sits in the field, the more it's gonna rot. I don't think that's ever gonna amount to anything, and if it does, like I said, it's gonna be no good. These are real bad. Like I said, almost a hole like through the outside of the skin. And that's just kind of how the whole field goes. We'll see what happens, but unless they're way down underneath, hidden inside there, they're gonna be no good. Here's our plum tomatoes. Here's a red one that was hidden a little bit. Now this is kind of small, but it's beautiful. Let's see. That actually doesn't look so bad. That cluster there looks hit pretty hard. Get into some bigger ones here. Yeah, they have a lot of those marks on them too. Here's some red ones. It almost looks like somebody just took their nails and gouged them into them. Even the stems themselves, I mean, you can just see all the hail damage. It's just kind of crazy. With that being said, I'm gonna call it a wrap for this video. As always, thank you guys for watching, and always remember, it ain't much, but it's honest work.